I let it take over my, I was scared to do it. And I'm a video producer. when you have to how many sets you have. Actually, I teach 3 different schools. I teach 5 different.
Is that harder with like I know for me, it's hard. Like I have like do 6 different.
Otherwise, you have a boring meeting.
Teach the same
What
6
did you roll that, by the way? It's like, is she really not gonna share with me?
Cheers,
But I wrote, I said, I forgive you, Wolfie.
has a similar
Have you watched the movie Amadeus? Have I watched Have you watched the movie Amadeus? You need to watch it so you get the joke. It's a good movie.
Or they so I didn't realize so Fredericksburg was divided.
Alright, should we start? So I'm gonna get started. Welcome to the Teacher Studio. My name is Bea Liederman. I am an instructional technology innovations specialist in Prince Edward County. I have been in this role in one way or another since 2005, and before that I taught Spanish. And I like I was telling my friend a minute ago, I just never grew up, and so I like doing this kind of stuff because it's just fun to be with kids doing stuff and not having to be a grown-up all the time. So what we're going to talk about is how to make videos that help students actually learn, because we have a wealth of video out there, but not all of it leads to learning. And hopefully, if you're in this room, you're not this person. And if you run into this person, I hope that what I give you here today is going to help you not be this person. Because just because we had to be subjected to awful boring stuff in school because we had no resources to make it any different, doesn't mean that we need to do the same thing to the kids that sit in front of us in school. So let's talk about video, and let's talk about the brain. So this is the history of humanity. Humans have been around for 3 million years, not exactly like we are right now, but yes, 3 million years. And if you look at the history of writing, it's only 3,000 years old. So what, 1% of that? Am I doing the math right? So our brains were not designed for learning from reading and writing originally. And we have not really evolved in the 3,000 intervening years to change that. And in fact, if you look at this even closer, you'll realize that the French Revolution happened very, very close to where we are today. And that is really when formal schooling really came into being. Before that, you learned by being out with things and doing things. So our brains were never really designed to sit and do what you're doing, to sit and learn from hearing somebody talk and then reading and writing about it. And so if I put this in scale, this is when writing started. And this is when formal schooling started. So our brains were not made for this kind of activity. Our brains were designed for us to be out, paying attention, filtering things out, doing things, and remembering what works and what doesn't. Trial and error. And storytelling. Everything has to go back to trial and error and storytelling. Just remember that. So what can we learn from watching video? We can learn pretty much anything from watching a video. And that is why YouTube is the greatest thing ever invented. I don't care what you tell me. Just today, we were like, how would you jumpstart a motorcycle? Well, there's a YouTube video for that. Just watch the video and go do it, right? But why do we learn from video? It is because we are engaging our senses, and we can watch it multiple times. Most importantly, we can do along with our video or immediately following our video, which is why when teachers look at me and go, yeah, but my kids watch YouTube videos all day long and they don't want to watch my videos. Well, it has to be relevant. It has to be something that they do something with immediately following watching the video. Just watching the video is not learning. For example, we watched about jumping a motorcycle. Just because we didn't do it, I don't remember the details. I know I watched the video and I know I can do it if I watch the video again. And that's the key. So we go back to the types of memories that are engaged when you watch a video. I know I watched the video. That's my episodic memory. I know it was about motorcycles, and then I know it showed me the procedures. So your episodic memory goes immediately into your long-term memory. I know I did it. Or at least it goes into your short-term memory, which is good. Then you have your semantic memory, which are the facts and figures and concepts that are not necessarily relevant to us. And so the things that you have to learn in school. What were the countries that fought in World War I? What was the cause of the Industrial Revolution? When was the printing press invented? All these things are disconnected from our lives. Oh, we have somebody who joined the video. Hi! So, it's gone. So, semantic memory is not something that is naturally in our brains the minute it's given to us. So, everything that we teach in school is semantic memory. And how do we bridge the gap? Well, we have to think about how memory works. You start out with working memory, and you can hold somewhere between 5 and 10 items in working memory at any given time, which is the reason phone numbers originally had 7 digits, right? You can remember that. And how do you remember it? If I tell you my phone number, what are you going to do to remember it?
Say it over and over again.
Say it over and over and over again. Exactly. So things that are immediately in your brain don't stay there unless you do something with it. Then you have your short-term memory. You might still remember my phone number tomorrow, but if you don't dial it again, by next week, it's gone. That's your working memory. Your short-term memory. Your working memory is immediate. Your short-term memory is about a week to 10 days. This is the winning place. When you put things in long-term memory, you're not limited by the number of things that can be in it, and it's there forever. You might forget it, but just a little prompt can bring it right back. So learning really is making changes to long-term memory. Otherwise, you're not learning, right? So how do we move things from semantic memory in short-term memory to long-term memory? Well, first of all, we repeat things over and over again. Second, and most importantly, we apply them. We take what we are told and we do something with it. Because then it's no longer just a semantic memory, it is now an episodic memory. You know you did it. I know all of you remember the projects you did in school and in college, but you don't remember what you were told in a lecture. And we talk about, the kids always remember how you make them feel because it is something that happens to them. So it is something that is autobiographical. Autobiographic stuff is always an episodic memory because it's something that actually happened. It's an episode in your life. So the next thing is you can embed it in a story, which is what TV shows do, which is, some teachers complain, like, kids know everything that happened in Game of Thrones, but they don't know what I taught them in science class. Because Game of Thrones is a fun story. Everybody knows who Jon Snow's parents are. But who cares what the chemical formula for salt might be, right? It's irrelevant and disconnected from anything else. Tell them a joke about it, and they'll remember. So you have to embed things in a story, or you have to surprise people. When you surprise people, they remember. And you can also appeal to emotion. That's why we all remember those figures, facts and figures in sob videos that you see on Facebook. Oh, can you imagine? Oh no. Right? So in school, we focus on repetition and application. Repetition. If you make a video, kids can watch it over and over and over and over again, and it's great. But there has to be application because you have to understand how it works. And then it also becomes an episode that you remember. So now, how do we make a video? How do we plan for a video that takes all this and makes the learning experience more effective? So you have to design videos that balance what's known as the cognitive load. And the cognitive load is made up of everything that you see, everything that you hear, and everything that you do. And on top of that, there's also everything that you feel. So I'm going to close. Thank you. So cognitive load has 3 parts to it. The first one is intrinsic. The next one is germane, and the last one is extraneous. So intrinsic is everybody here has intrinsic cognitive load just by being in this room and watching me present. Even if you walk away and learn nothing after you've been here, the intrinsic load is the effort that it takes your brain to sit and watch me and either pay attention or just pretend to pay attention, right? Then your germane load is the effort that your brain actually makes to learn. So if you find math very easy, your brain is not going to have very much cognitive load learning math. If you're learning something that you're already somewhat familiar with, your cognitive load is not going to be very heavy. And then there's the extraneous load, and this is the part that we can manage the best when we make videos. This is all the distractions. The people out there laughing and talking, lots of transitions in your video, lots of movement, music in the background, unnecessary titles, anything that you have in your video that is not directly related to the content that you want the kids to learn is something that the brain perceives. And then the brain has to make the determination. Do I need to know this or do I not need to know this? Is this important or is this not important? So the fewer times your brain has to make that determination, if you know that what you're seeing on the screen is exactly what you're having to learn, then your brain is going to understand things better. It's the reason why when you're driving down the road and you get lost and the radio is on, you flip off the radio immediately because your brain needs to focus on finding your way. And the music, as fun as it is and as much as you like it, is sucking out part of your brain power by having to pay attention to it, even if it's an unconscious act. So managing cognitive load, there are strategies for this. And the first one is signaling. So when you walked into the room, I told you exactly what I was going to talk about. We're going to talk about making videos that help students learn based on research so that their brain captures everything better. So signaling includes stating the purpose, highlighting what's important, having titles that are meaningful, and any on-screen indicator. So like highlighting the mouse, anything like that. For example, this is something that Khan Academy videos do very, very well, because sometimes when you're watching a Khan Academy video, things are not already on the screen when you look at it. They appear on the screen as they become important. So your brain knows exactly where to look and what to pay attention to when you're watching those videos. The next thing is segmenting, and this one is super important. By the way, do you see the signaling I did in this slide? I'm telling you where to look next, right? So just a hint. So segmenting. Videos should be short. And this is something that is so tough to get across because people are like, but I have so much to say. Okay, break it up into small chunks. Research shows that you have people's attention for the first 2 minutes at about 100%. By 3 minutes, you're losing about 80% of that attention. By the time you get to 5 minutes, people are paying attention to less than 30% of what you're saying. And if you go and look at video statistics, you can now go to some websites where they show you what parts of the video had the most views, not just for the video in general. You'll see that the video starts at the top, and at the 3-minute mark, most people have dropped away. They're no longer paying attention. So what makes the difference between, so if a teacher comes to you and says, well, my kids can sit and watch a Tom Hanks movie all the way through 10 times and they're super entertained and paying attention. Well, the Tom Hanks movie is a story that catches their attention. And even if they've seen it before, it's a story. If you want your kids to pay attention and you have to make a long video, It has to be some sort of story. Otherwise, you need to chunk it into really short segments. And even within the video, if you have a 3 or 4 minute video, cut it into parts and signal that you're moving from one part to another. If you just drone on for a long time, you lose their attention. They just get distracted. It's just the nature of brains. Don't say kids these days, because you do it too. You just don't want to admit it. The next thing is weeding. And this is where you decide when you're planning for a video, what you leave in and what you leave out. So how many examples do you need? Is one example enough? Find the best example to put in your video. Don't just ramble 3 or 4 or 5 different things to talk about. If you're filming a slide deck with lecture, cut out the transitions, leave out the music. Make sure that what's being shown on the screen is the most important stuff. So focus on just, don't have clip art, don't have, crazy stuff, just focus on what's most important. And then this is big, because this is something that I see happen a lot. Matching modality is something that most people don't think about. If I put a bunch of text on the screen, I need to stop and let you read. I can't have a big paragraph and then talk over it. Because if you're the audience for that video, you don't know if you should be listening to me or reading. And your brain will try to do both at the same time, and you'll get confused and get nothing out of it. So don't talk over your text. Whenever possible, show a picture instead of a description. Don't talk unnecessarily over the stuff that's on the screen that is self-explanatory. So match the modality. Should you talk about it? Should you show a picture? Or should you have text and let people read it? You need to decide which one is the best way to communicate that particular piece of information. So again, learning is about making changes to long-term memory, both episodic and semantic. And it only happens through active participation. So it doesn't matter how good your video is. If all you do is tell the kids to watch the video, that is not learning. Once the kids have watched the video, you have to ask the kids to carry out some task that is directly related to the information in the video. Answering a couple questions is okay. Fill in the blanks is terrible. Doing something, go and apply it. So whatever it is that they did, go do it yourself. If you showed a math problem, go solve one and come back and make sure you did it properly. If you assembled something, if you assembled a drone, have them actually go and assemble the drone. If you showed somebody how to jumpstart a motorcycle with jumper cables, have them go do it. I mean, if you just watch and don't do it, you know you watched the video, that's in your episodic memory, but the content of the video is in your working memory and it will evaporate. It will not be there later. You'll have to go watch it again in order to do it. And that's not what you want to do. Sometimes, yes. And you want to teach the kids that resourcefulness. If you need to watch it again, that's why I made a video. But when it's time for assessment, it's not necessarily feasible for them to go watch the video during the assessment. And we're all pushing for kids to be able to do things without having to look back all the time. So if you're looking for learning, you have to have the kids actually do something. So let's talk about the different kinds of videos that we make as teachers for our students and as ITIS says for our teachers. Screen capture video. Make sure you clear your screen. What I like to do is have a different user on my computer that does not have any files on my desktop. Because all those files, and especially if we're teachers, we might have files that have student names on them, and it becomes a privacy issue. So clear your screen. Make sure there's nothing visible that people shouldn't see. If you're recording something that's in a browser tab, close all your other tabs. There's a man named Walt Mossberg who used to do videos for technology companies, And he would have lots of browser tabs open when he published these videos. He was really famous. He's retired now. And it became a joke whenever he would publish a new video to his blog for people to talk about what tabs were open, because he used to look at, it would be very inappropriate in schools, and the tabs were all open and you could see what they were. So make sure you're not sharing things that you shouldn't. Clear your screen, close your browser tabs. Zoom in. If you can zoom in, make the important stuff big. Don't be pointing to something that's teeny tiny on your screen that makes it hard to see, especially if you make a low resolution video that when you make it big, it's all blurry. Reduce unnecessary movement. So I know it's this thing that we all do when we're making a screencast, and we point to something and we move the mouse over it a bunch of times, like this thing right here. And that kind of thing is very distracting. Just point to something and leave the mouse where it is. Be slow and deliberate. Remember that you are teaching something that you already know, but the person who's watching doesn't. So slow down. Watch yourself after you've done your video and see how slowly you did it. Most importantly, if you can, test it out with someone. Show the video to someone and say, was this slow enough for you to follow? If you have a teacher that you trust, it can't be another ITIS because they're probably going to know what you're doing anyways. But find a classroom teacher who's willing to look at your stuff and go, yeah, or no, you skipped some steps, or I found this confusing, and take that advice back. Respond to that feedback. Don't take it as offensive or whatever. Make sure that you are serving your audience. If possible, highlight your cursor. The video, the product I like to use on my Mac is called Mouse Pose, but there are Windows products as well. And if nothing else, just make your cursor giant in your settings so that people see where you're pointing and clicking. So this is a sample video. I wonder if it's going to play.
Hello, in this video I'm going to show you the difference between cloning and stamping, and I'm going to show you the difference by having two almost identical stacks of code. In this first stack I'm using the stamping block, and in the second stack I'm using the cloning block. So when I run this stack of code, I have all these cats, but only one of them is real. The others are just images of the cat that are attached to the background of the project, and to get rid of them I have to erase them. When I run the cloning stack, I have all these cats that are actual entities in my project that I can then code and have them behave independently of each other. So I'm going to show you how to do that. When I stop a program that has cloning in it, the clones will disappear. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new stack that will tell the clones to spin. So when I start as a clone, forever, spin 15 degrees to the right. Let's see how this goes. I click right here and now the cats are spinning. Now notice that the original cat is not spinning because it's not a clone, and there is nothing in my code that tells that original cat to spin. So you have to hide that clone, hide the original one if you don't want the cat to just be in the way when you're doing something in a project. Useful times to use a clone is when you have something that repeats multiple times and you don't want to have a different sprite for each one of them. So for example, let's say the aliens in Space Invaders, those would be clones. And just keep in mind that you can only have up to 300 clones on the screen at one time, and after that the clones just stop cloning. So keep that in mind, and I hope you make some really fun projects in the future. Thanks for watching.
So simple, short, under 2 minutes. And I highlighted my mouse, and when I opened, I already had some of it set up to reduce the amount of motion on the screen. I could have gone and made each one of those blocks, but I had them ready, and I demonstrated how they worked so that you could see the difference. So if you want to see how I made it, you can pause and look closer at each block of code, but you don't have to watch the entire creation of it. It's a shorter video to watch, and it focuses on exactly what I said I was going to do, demonstrate the difference between stamping and cloning. Give an example, give a use for it. So slides and lectures, and this has been a big deal over the past 2 years, right? Making videos with slides and talking over them. So the first thing, eliminate the talking head. It's really cute to put your head in your video when you're lecturing, but you in the video are nothing but a distraction. You are contributing to the extrinsic load of watching video. I know that I've had people say to me, oh, but in my district, we were told we had to include our head because it's good for building relationships. But it's like saying because I watched, I don't know, Toy Story, I have a relationship with Tom Hanks. I don't. If the relationship is simply of an audience in a video, there is no relationship there. So don't fall for that. It's not a thing. Take the head off the screen and focus on the important stuff. Keep the slides simple. Use a font that is readable. Don't go for cutesy stuff. Leave off things like clip art. Leave off things like transitions. Don't have colors that are crazy and distracting. Focus on readability and simplicity. Use gradual builds like I've been doing all along. If you have everything on the screen when the slide comes up, the audience will read through it rather than listen to what you have to say about each one of them. So don't have everything on the screen at one time. One thing that I didn't put on this slide is use lots of white space. Don't put a lot of stuff on a single slide. Remember that slides are free. A slide presentation with 3 slides costs you as much money as a slide presentation with 20 slides. So don't overcrowd your slides. Give the eyes of your audience space for resting. Allow time for reading when you have text on the screen. Don't talk over your text. And again, just like everything else, segment it into meaningful chunks. If you have to do 3 slides and pause and give the kids an activity, do that, then come back and do some more. Go back and do some more. But don't do an hour-long lecture and expect kids to pay attention to it and walk away with anything in their brains. It doesn't work that way. Physical demonstration. If you're actually showing how to do something, again, just like with your desktop, clear your work area of things that are not necessary. Zoom in on the action. Like, for example, that camera is up there and they're filming me and I'm here. And if I wanted to show you something on my phone, I should not be doing it from here. I should walk up to the camera and show it up there. So if you're doing something with a camera, have the camera super close to you. Reduce unnecessary movement. So be very deliberate with your movement of your hands and your tools when you're doing a demonstration. Work slowly. Again, sometimes it's useful to start with a finished product, show how to make it, and then get to the finished product as well, or just have the finished product and show how it was assembled while it's already put together, so that the audience knows what to go for and what to pay attention to. And use first-person view, meaning rather than having somebody filming you from that way, film from your point of view, because whatever you're doing here, it is more understandable to the audience when they can see it and imagine their own hands doing the task. So here's an example of a first-person view video.
Hello, this is a video of how to make a switch using an index card. I have an index card and I have put copper tape on either end, and you can see that I have connected the alligator clips to each one of them to a different piece of tape. And here I have an LED bulb, and when I close the switch, then the light bulb turns on. Because the card is stiff, the fold does not hold so that the contact is always closed. And the great thing about using a piece of cardstock like this is that you can decorate the button or write the function of the button directly on it if you want, and you can decorate it and make it look nice. So that's how it works.
Simple, short, just showed one thing, showed it finished, showed how to put it together, and I was zooming very close on my hands. You couldn't see what else was on my table. You couldn't see anything else. The next thing is use your voice. Don't sound like this, like, oh my gosh, this is so boring to make this video. And then I'm going to require you to watch it and I'm going to prove you on it, right? Be enthusiastic about what you're teaching. Even when you don't feel like it, just, pretend a little. So be enthusiastic, offer encouragement. If it's something that's hard, rather than saying it's hard, say, pay close attention to this, it's important. Don't ever scare kids by telling them it's hard. When you tell people something is hard, it immediately shuts down your brain. It's a threat. Nobody learns when they're threatened. Call attention to important things, important details always, and remind your audience to pause and rewind if they need to. None of the videos I've shown have been long enough for me to have to do this, but if you're showing something longer, you need to remind the audience, this is a video that you can watch again if you need to. It's not like it's once and done. Go back and do it again. Try it and come back. Try it and come back. That's what it's there for. So video, as I said, video on its own does not do the job. You have to design your lesson so that the video is only part of it, but that the big chunk is whatever the students are doing. They have to be doing something. Watching a video is not really doing something. They have to actively apply what it is you show them. So useful equipment to have. I've decided that regardless of where I am, my phone is the camera I have with me. I don't wait for anybody to buy me special equipment to make my videos. If I need to make a video, I use my phone. We all have phones, so go ahead and use it. But what I have found is super useful is having a selfie stick on a tripod. So I bought a little tripod about this big. I think I bought it at Five Below for $3. And I have a selfie stick that I got as a presenter gift one year here at NIST. I took off the head of the tripod that had the phone holder, and instead I attached a selfie stick to it. So it's got little legs and a selfie stick that I can pull up and angle the phone over any surface. And that's how I make my videos. I have my selfie stick, I put my phone on it, I pull it up to the table, and I can work. And because it's a phone and it's not anything big, I can work around it. And as I'm doing it, I can keep an eye on what's on the screen as well. So I know what my end result is going to be. If you don't want to buy a tripod and a selfie stick, you can always use a ruler and rubber band your phone to the ruler and then put the ruler in a stack of books. You pile up some books and you put the ruler in between the books at whatever height you need it, and it works just fine. When I record my audio, I never just speak into the microphone at a distance. I always use headphones with an inline microphone. Especially, I especially like to use my Apple ones. The Apple branded ones, the little inline microphone actually has noise canceling technology in it. And it's made specifically to capture your voice. So if there's a vent around you, or if there's a hum of a refrigerator, if you're doing this at home, whatever it is, all those ambient sounds are filtered out for the most part. So you get really good audio when you record with just little headphones in your earbuds. Light your area with a lamp. You can just bring any lamp and put it near you, or work under a good light bulb anywhere in your home or in your classroom. But make sure that when you light stuff, you don't have very harsh shadows that are showing up, because the shadows become a distraction. And I think that's it for now. Does anybody have any questions? All of this is research-based. If you're interested in reading directly from the source, I have citations. Yes, I'm a nerd. I will have this on Sched with all the citations so you can read if you're interested. It's all very interesting research, but it's very accessibly written, so you don't have to read a lot of heavy academic stuff.
I do have a question
Yes.
about text on screen when you are narrating. So in the video that you created with the alligator clips, if you were to go and then need to transcribe that and put text on screen, would it be something that you do, or do you have a program do it? I know you will do it if you're gonna put it on YouTube, but what do you do?
I usually put it on YouTube and
Okay.
use the automatic captioning.
Okay,
So the good thing about that is people who need it can turn it on,
right.
and people who don't need it can turn it off. And so it's not a distraction. But now that you mention that, I've been reading some research about subtitles and learning a new language
Yes.
and how subtitles help you acquire language. So even if you're just trying to improve your listening skills, reading subtitles when you already know what the content is very good for acquiring language. So watching something the first time with no subtitles, watching it the next time with subtitles helps you acquire language at any age. Yes.
What was the app that you said you use for your cursor on your Mac?
Mouse Pose.
Mouse.
It is $10 a year. Worth the investment.
Okay, thank you.
What would you suggest for like an infographic where you have an image that has like quite a bit of text? Would you just say like your narration should match exactly what's on that infographic, or is it kind of like zoom into different areas?
So research shows that yes, you should zoom in, read it, and then address it. So don't just talk over it and assume that the audience has watched it. So if you, like, in my presentation tomorrow, I have a quote out of the Virginia STEM Commission report. It's an important quote. If I have it on the screen, I'm going to give everybody time to read it. Or I'm going to read it out loud and then talk about it. But I shouldn't just have a quote and then talk about something else or paraphrase it. It's not good for the brain of the audience to pay attention because there's a discrepancy between what the eyes are sensing and what the ears are sensing. And it causes too much cognitive load. So it reduces comprehension. So read it out loud and then discuss it. Or be quiet and wait for the audience to read it.
And you said be quiet, because that's where I'm confused a little bit. So be quiet and wait for the audience to read it and then read it? And then you read it, or?
I usually do.
Okay, so you'll give pause read time.
Right.
Silent read time, and then.
And I guess it would depend on the age of your audience.
Yes.
My guess is if you're showing an infographic, you're dealing with high school kids. But with younger kids, you might read it out loud and have them practice that skill of following along with their eyes while they're listening, right? Because it helps with fluency. See how all these things are connected? It's not just technology. You have to know how brains work. So I was gonna add some stuff, but I was worried about time, and it turns out that I have so much time. So I'm gonna give you a couple more things that are important. When you're planning a video, I don't like to be scripted. I don't like to have a script. So if I'm going to talk about something, I make a list of items that I need to mention, and I have it visible to me. I don't have it on the screen, but I have it where I can see it. So I know I don't miss anything. But I don't script things. Sometimes when I have to script things because I'm making a video for somebody else to use, what I do is I make the video first, the visual part. So let's say I'm making a screen capture. I'll do it, and I'll do it very slowly. And then I will record my audio separately. And then I will put it together. I will do editing and I'll put it together. And what that lets me do is, if as I'm reading my description, it doesn't match my actions because my actions were too fast, I can always slow down the video. I cannot always slow down or speed up my voice because it will sound funny sometimes. So recording them separately helps me make a better video. And it doesn't take much longer because when you're trying to do everything at once, you're gonna end up with multiple takes. Because you make a mistake and you're like, oh, I'll start over. But if you do it separately, you can then edit together, and it seems like more work, but in reality, and we've had this experience, right? In reality, when you do things separately, you do a little extra work, but it takes a lot less time. Which goes also to chunking. When you're segmenting your videos, if you're making a 2-minute video and you make a mistake and you have to start over, it's 2 minutes. If you're making an hour-long video and you blow it at minute 45, you've got 45 minutes that you blew. So segmenting helps you with the production as well. Even if you're going to put it all together later. It's not like, Steven Spielberg does not film the movie in a single day all the way through. They do little bits and then they put it together. We can do that too as teachers. So take advantage of that. It lets you make higher quality work when you make it in small chunks and pay closer attention because you're more focused on this little bit and then 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 you put it all together. So all these are practical advice from someone who has made thousands of videos, literally. I don't know, what other tools do I use a lot? When I'm using my Mac, I do all my screen capture using QuickTime, which is built into the Mac. It just works. There is a tool for screen capturing on a Windows computer that has to do with streaming for gaming. So you activate it and you can capture. So it's something that is actually built into Windows. I forget exactly what it's called, but if you Google it, you'll find it.
Yeah, it's hold the Windows key and press G, I believe, and that will open up.
Right, but you have to set it up in settings to allow it first. Right, but you don't have to buy expensive equipment. Like, back in the day, we would all like, oh, I want the Camtasia license to make these videos. You don't need that. I mean, it's nice to have, but you don't have to buy expensive stuff to make an effective video. Sometimes all the bells and whistles end up being a distraction for the students. So keeping it simple and keeping it cheap works better. That's all I have.
Thank you.
There are no questions from that side?
Questions there? Yes, if you put the presentation in scan.
Yes, I will. I will